Wheels up. Welcome back to the Catalyst Podcast. I'm really excited to continue on in this transformation series. Today I have Blair Nichols, and I'll kind of set him up a little bit, and then I'll let kind of transition to having Blair introduce himself a bit. But Blair and I connected actually through his company, Advance Your Reach, and I've been the benefactor of their service and just the way they have interacted with the podcast community has been great. It's been a great experience for me. I'm super excited to have Blair on. He is actually the director of stages, is his title, and that's only one of the things that he has going on. And maybe we'll get to this somewhere in the conversation. But as I got to know him in an intro call, and as I looked, obviously over his profile, LinkedIn profile, I thought, man, like this guy. Time management has got to be one of your strengths because you have a lot going on. So maybe we talk about time management too. But anyway, we're here to talk about transformation. And with that, I just would love for you to spend a few seconds introducing yourself, and we can kick things off.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thanks, Hunter. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be part of the podcast and appreciate all your support of Advance Your Reach and our many clients. We work with a lot of different entrepreneurs and help them get their message out to the world and on stages so that they can get in front of their target audience. And I've been working with people in the capacity of speaking almost my entire career. I came out of college and joined the HarperCollins Speakers Bureau, which was one of the first publishers to have their own in-house speakers bureau. And so I always kind of thought I wanted to work with authors, and I didn't even know that this whole world of speaking existed. And that was 2007. So a lot has changed since then. The whole rise of YouTube and everyone having their own website, and now everyone can have a podcast. So there's so many more opportunities to get your message out there. You don't have to rely on traditional publishers or traditional agencies to get you in front of audiences. Everyone's now really empowered to do that. So it's just an exciting time to be out there starting businesses or podcasts or anything else like that, because there are so many tools and platforms for you to do so. So I went from New York to LA working with thought leaders and people who are using speaking not just to promote their book or spread their message, but also to grow their business. Along the way, I got my MBA out here in LA, and so I got to get a little bit deeper knowledge in business since I was a lit major. And that brought me back into an agency where I was helping them grow a talent list. And I saw how many people wanted to be part of this agency's roster. They wanted to be on the website. They were speakers. They, are wanting to get out there and get paid for speaking, but they also had businesses and other things behind them. So I just knew that there was this need out in the marketplace for some way that more speakers could get a platform to get noticed or to get booked for events. And that's really what we've created, Advance Your Reach. Our stage agency helps anyone at any level, whether they've just gotten started speaking on podcasts or have been speaking for years, get booked on stages, and they don't have to get paid for that stage to be valuable. I think we all know there's a value in reaching an audience, no matter what your business is, what your message is. There's an audience for you and someone that needs to hear it, and probably someone that, could benefit from working with you. So that's what we do. That's what I'm excited about. And I just love helping people, whether it's in their business or their speaking or in general, get better at whatever they do.
Yeah, that's awesome. No, and it ties. Not only have I been a benefactor, but just the narrative that you described there is important to me personally. And this is kind of the way I view it. Starting Catalyst Podcast January 2020 was kind of the first step for me in my journey of being a better speaker and kind of growing a community around me and an audience, so to speak. And so definitely, just fascinated by all the aspects of, especially like we're talking about, like you brought up, the different mediums. So just to kind of, I guess, dive in this a little bit, you referenced that you'd kind of been in this world since 2007. You've seen a lot of evolution with different technologies and whatnot. But I think the biggest thing, just out of my curiosity and how it ties in with the transformation series theme, is what are the dynamics of the last 12 months? Can we just start there with the obvious disruption of 2020.
Yeah, well, weird. I was just saying today to some of my colleagues, it's like, wow, we're celebrating a year from our pivot.
Right.
So, not just a year from lockdown and quarantine as it kind of rolled across the US about a year ago that we're recording this in March. But, a full year has gone by since a lot of people started realizing that virtual was the only option, and not
Mm-hmm.
just a great option, but the only option. Before 2020, if you wanted to get booked virtually, webinars just weren't as much of something that people really valued. There's a lot of webinars out there, there's a lot of virtual platforms, there's social media, there's all of those different mediums that have been around. But and the agency world, people just weren't really paying, the full fee or even half a fee to book someone to speak virtually. So it just wasn't much of a viable option.
Mm-hmm.
And in 2020, we saw that because that was the only option, it had to become a viable option. So a lot, we heard at the beginning, a lot of people are like, well, everyone's at home anyway. Why can't he just come to speak for free, or she come to speak for free? And, that doesn't really work when people are used to getting paid $10, $20, $30,000 for speaking. Yes, there is a value to speakers. Yes, it has been a benefit to speakers that they don't have to be on the road. They can do several events in one day because they can just, present from anywhere, but their time, their message, their expertise is still valuable. So
Yeah.
I think it's opened up so many opportunities in the virtual space that aren't going to go away. Yes, we're going to return to in-person meetings, but I think a lot of those meetings, those events are still going to be hybrid. So there might be a virtual component. And what's cool is, as speakers, as you're getting started and other people are getting out there more, you now have twice as many, if not 3 or 4 times as many opportunities, because in the past, if I booked someone for a date and someone else wanted in to speak on that date, unless they happened to be in the same city, they were booked. They couldn't do that. Now, at least that meeting organizer, event planner would have the option of bringing them in virtually. And yeah, they're going to pay a lower fee.
Mm-hmm.
Now that speaker gets to do those both events in the same day. One maybe at their full in-person fee, maybe one at their half price or whatever virtual fee, but still that's more than they could have ever done in the past. So I'm looking forward to those types of opportunities, but also just now that we've seen all these different platforms and opportunities and how people can come together in a challenge or a summit or a virtual conference where that might not have been something that people considered before. And from the event side, we've seen how those virtual events have really opened up, the literal virtual doors for so many attendees who wouldn't be able to attend that event, whether it was cost prohibitive, travel prohibitive, or they have a disability, or there any sort of accessibility issue. I think it's amazing now that people can be part of these events because they can attend from home and they can have some sort of experience. And for, event planners, they wouldn't have been able to sell virtual tickets before. So now that virtual option is, yes, probably a lower price option, but it's an option. It's just another new revenue channel for them.
Do the events that you're kind of describing and have seen executed has the participation or maybe like the sign up rate been higher than expected, or has it just kind of been kind of hard to nail that down? What has that been like?
Yeah, and I'm glad you asked. I mean, it was crazy. So last in 2020 in March, our big event through Advance Your Reach was supposed to happen live in Orlando at the end of April, and we were planning on about 1,000 people, maybe 1,100 people, to attend live. And when you have a live event, obviously you're hoping to make money off ticket sales and whatever else is involved in the event, but you're spending a lot of money on the space, on the food, on the beverage. Everything that goes into planning a live event has a lot of costs. So you're hoping that anything that comes out of it, you're going to make some money off of in the long run, or from all of those pieces. So we had to make a decision as a team. And so in March, April, we decided to turn that event into a virtual event, create a challenge for 3 weeks, prior to the event. And we ended up with 3,000 people in our virtual event and making more than 3 times the amount of money from that event than we were planning to make from in person. So it became a huge success story for us. And, that's why we started kind of teaching and consulting other companies on how they can up level their virtual events, how they can make those still a really awesome experience for their attendees. and they can, do even better for those reasons. Like they could, bring so many more people in and just increase that volume, significantly.
Yeah. Wow. No, that's just a fascinating thought to think about, like kind of the shift there, because it is more accessible and it's not tied to a geographic location. The other part, like the marketing side of my brain, goes to like you have the potential to get more, even if because I think there was one event, a guy that I've really been trying to support. I knew I couldn't make it, but I signed up because I wanted the information. If there was some follow up from that event, I wanted any kind of video or documents or something like that. I wanted to be able to have that, even though I knew that there was a conflict with the actual event time. So I think about that. I think about what kind of net you can cast with, even if it's just people signing up for the event that may not make it. I can't imagine what that kind of ratio tends to be with
Oh yeah. The
with
show up rate,
right show up
so
rate.
yeah, there's all these numbers, and even in live events, in-person events, you're going to have people who don't show up, who bought tickets, and that's obviously they've lost out on that. But in virtual events, that's certainly a much higher, event. So obviously the higher the ticket price, the lower that is. But that's just, that's a fact. That's just a part of putting on virtual events. So
Mm-hmm.
that's just something to be aware of. A lot of times when we're booking speakers for an event, we'll ask them, well, how much are your tickets? How much do they cost? How many, what's your show up rate, and how many people are you anticipating? And, event planners, when they want to book great speakers, they're like, well, we're going to sell this many tickets, or we're going to have we have this many people registered. So you got to be a little bit savvy and understand, well, if it's a free event, you've got that many people registered, show up rate could be 20%. It could be less than that if it's a free event. And, like I said, the more they pay, the more likely they are to show up, because they don't want to lose out on that investment. But that's just a way that we can gauge, the quality of the event, and why it became really important to talk to people who really understood their numbers. A lot of things that happened in 2020 were happening for the first time. So an event was brand new, and a lot of people were brand new at hosting that, and they had big ambitions that they were going to bring in, tens of thousands of people to their event. And after, a few of those, we learned, yeah, they thought they were going to bring in that many, but then there's only a couple hundred maybe in the room, or even less. So, your reach and the actual results can vary a lot, just depending on, what they've got going on in their history with their audience, and if they're really able to drive and demand that type of engagement. So we obviously prefer to work with people who really know how to market their event, who really know how to get that audience to show up and be engaged. So as people get more experienced as speakers and working with these, you got to be a little bit savvy and kind of reading between the lines, and what they promise and what they're able to fulfill on isn't always the same. And that especially matters for sponsors. People who are paying to be a sponsor for an event really expect to get some sort of return. And so they really, you got to be transparent, and you got to understand like what the value is for them. And so when you're making these promises, you're going to shoot yourself in the foot if you've kind of set yourself up for disappointment, if you're thinking everyone that registers is going to show up. So there's a lot of different, constituents involved in the event industry. And the people who are, going to be the best ones to partner with are either have a track record of good events and good show up, but also who are just honest. I like working with people who even say, look, we're probably going to get 150 people. 150 people who are there and engaged can be a great audience. I'd rather hear that than say, we're going to have 10,000. And, then they get a lot less, and they don't really own the fact that they didn't realize really what the real numbers would be. So yeah, all of those stuff, it just becomes kind of an equation for us, especially when you've got speakers who are looking to sell at an event. That's a big part of what we do. We help people get on stages where they can make an offer, or they know that they're going to convert a certain number of people in the audience. And if we don't have a good feeling for how many people are actually going to be there, it's hard to even do that math. But we'll always be conservative. 10% are going to show up, maybe 10% are going to buy, and then how many are going to, so we try to calculate that for our clients. And we talk about that being like the stage value index. Like, what is this value of this stage? Because eventually, Hunter, it becomes about your time, right? Everything you do takes time. How much time you spend doing one thing or the other as an entrepreneur is super important. So if getting on a stage means it could be $20,000 in the beginning of your career, that might be incredible. Somewhere down the road, it might not be worth your time. It might be worth someone else on your team doing that speaking engagement. So we've got people who, they don't want to step on a stage if it doesn't mean it's going to generate potentially six figures in sales. So that's just where they're at in their careers and in their business, that they can demand that sort of return from what they do, and it makes sense, and other people it's not going to be as high. So definitely
Yeah.
different, and learning that in virtual events, we definitely stubbed our toe a few times, taking people at their word.
Yeah, no, I imagine so. And like you said, it was experiencing it together for the first time in a lot of ways, and making that shift. And so it sounds like, if I heard you right, you're kind of full spectrum, from like um, a newbie to the concept and wanting to get started, to a seasoned stage professional, or
Yeah.
not sure what the exact word is, but
Yeah, we work with elite clients. Like Lisa Nichols just joined our agency this week, and she's been out there with huge events. She's got 30,000 people in her event this week. That's her own stage. We work with Bethany Hamilton, the soul surfer, beautiful, wonderful surfer who lost her arm to a shark when she was 13 years old. So people who
yeah,
are well known and have movies about them, all the way to entrepreneurs who are just getting started and who are speaking at summits or podcasts, or who haven't even started speaking yet.
okay,
We just try to coach our clients on how they can make the most from a stage. So you can get out on a stage, but you got to have a way to bring the audience into your world,
yeah,
get them to opt into your emails or your products. If you're not able to sell something, you want to be able to give them something that gets them to do that. Even if it's, hey, come take this quiz, take this assessment, just like all of the digital marketing tools that are out there. It's the same techniques that you would use from a stage, and in helping them learn that. But then once you've got them, you got to market to them still. You got to, send those follow-up emails or invite them to that webinar, that event, some way to convert them into customers. So we are really looking for, speakers and clients who know that stages are valuable because they're strategic for their business, not just people who are like, I want to be a paid speaker and I just want to get paid, get on that stage and speak, and then walk away and nothing happens with that audience. Or just pushing a book. A book doesn't have high margins. A book is not going to make most people rich. So you got to have like a product portfolio that's bigger than that, that maybe is a digital course or beyond, something that helps you really scale your business to make stages valuable to you. And the people who are just looking for paid stages aren't really, our ideal customer, because those are limited. Those are few and far between. The number of stages out there that are not paid, that are free but valuable in other ways, are abundant. It's just a very narrow thing. And like I said, coming out of the bureau world, the agency world, I saw how many speakers were out there versus how many speakers really get the attention of an agency or a bureau, or how many are able to demand a high fee. And most of those people, like in any industry, are the ones who already have a lot of demand. So the way to leverage stages effectively is to think about your business model behind it, and how they're more of a marketing tool than they are just, kind of the total payday for you by getting even a small stipend.
nice. Wow. No, it's interesting to hear you explain it a little further. I appreciate that. What and when people come to advance your reach, how does that relationship generally start? Is it something where, hey, I know so and so who is one of your clients, and I would, is it kind of by word of mouth, or how do you guys find
Sure.
your new relationships mostly?
Yeah. Well, we started with a digital course, and we do a big launch for that every year, and we enroll a new cohort of people, and we do weekly coaching along with it. So
Okay.
even though it's a DIY course, we want to make sure everyone's successful and gets through the course. So most of the time when people sign up for a digital course, only 5% of people actually go through with the entire course. Because, of course, our best of intentions are we're going to, oh man, this course is amazing and it's going to really help me. But left on your own, a lot of us don't follow through on that. The stakes aren't very high, especially if it's a low investment. So our numbers are closer to 55% of people actually go through our course, because each week we couple that with group coaching. So people are able to go through, and that's a way for people to make a lower investment, to learn our stage to scale method. And that's everything from, ironing out your signature talk, figuring out, your message and how best to deliver that story in a compelling way. Figuring out your product portfolio, how you're going to scale past the stage, what are those components you need to put in place to really make stages worthwhile, and then what are the assets you need to get the attention of meeting planners, your bio, your topics, your photo, and your sample video, all of that good stuff that, people want to vet you, people want to learn a little bit about you if they're going to book you for their stage or their podcast or whatever it may be, of course. So they learn that, and they go through all that on their own through our course. And then we created workshops where you can come work with us for 2 days and actually walk away with your signature talk really dialed in, with your speaker kit put together, with your scaling product portfolio kind of mapped out, if not somewhat completed. So, like all businesses, entrepreneurs nowadays, you want to think about kind of if you're a solopreneur especially, and you're, surviving on coaching or consulting, and you want to figure out how you scale your business. How you scale is by figuring out kind of your low ticket, mid ticket, and high ticket offers. And your high ticket is always going to be your time, because you only have so much of it. So our agency, the division that I run, is more of our high ticket, where we have dedicated agents serving our clients, doing the proactive research and outreach on their behalf for stages. So that's going to be the highest investment that you can do. And so most of the time people come in either through the course, or maybe they sign up for a workshop and then they might join the agency. But now we have started to kind of open the doors to the agency directly to outside people from the outside world. And they might decide that they, also want to do a workshop, but we help, bring them into the agency if they've already been established as a speaker, already have their message, already have some of those other things figured out. And then we can help them with their strategy to fill in any gaps that they may have. But certainly word of mouth is helpful. And hopefully as we grow, we're still a pretty new business. There'll be more of that type of referrals in the future as well.